What's going on, YouTubers? Dr. B back with another MicroVid. And in this MicroVid, we're going to be talking about right to left shunts. We're going to be talking about why they're important and basically what are they and what normal right to left shunts do we have in our bodies. Okay. All right. So let's go ahead and get this party started. I'll go ahead and share my screen. There we go. Okay. So in with right to left shunts, when we actually look at what a right to left shunt is, it essentially boils down to when we've got venous blood mixing, whoops, highlighted the wrong one. When we've got venous blood mixing with arterial blood. Now, when we think of arterial blood, right, we think of it as oxygenated blood, blood that has gone through the lungs and then it's come back to the left side of the heart and it's being pumped out into the systemic circulation. So that's arterial blood, oxygenated blood. When we think of venous blood, we think of deoxygenated in terms of gases, right? It's going to have more carbon dioxide, less oxygen. Remember that it's not totally deoxygenated in terms of lacking oxygen. We just call it deoxygenated, and hence less oxygen than arterial blood does. So right to left shunt is an instance when you've got venous blood, right, mixing with arterial blood. So let's look at this right here. If we look at an alveoli, which that's what this is. We're gonna call that, it's an alveolus. Alveolus is singular, alveoli is plural. And say we have a PO2, normal PO2, right? P, big A, O2 in the alveoli, all of them together. We're gonna say about 100 millimeters of mercury, okay? Well, we've got venous blood coming in, right? So this, I'm going to draw it in blue, right? Venous blood coming in, and the PO2 of venous blood, and that's going to be PO2 right there, is going to equal about 40 millimeters of mercury, okay? So venous blood is coming in, it's getting oxygenated at the alveoli, right? At the level of the alveoli, and when that blood leaves the pulmonary capillary or at the end of the pulmonary capillary, the PO2 under normal circumstances has equalized with the alveoli. So the PO2 in the pulmonary capillary blood that is leaving the pulmonary capillary, it's going to be right at equal to what the alveolus was if there's no, under normal circumstances, no pathological conditions, because there's enough time for the gas to fully equilibrate with the alveoli. Okay, so now here's where a right to left shunt comes in. If we actually look at the arterial circulation, right, the circulation that's in the aorta, say for example, the PO2 in the aorta is actually lower than the PO2 in both the alveoli and in the pulmonary capillary blood, or the blood that is leaving the pulmonary capillaries. So there's a drop in PO2. It's not because not because oxygen has diffused out into the systemic tissues. You need a circulation bed for it to have any significant effect for oxygen to drop that much. But in the arterial circulation, and this is the number I gave you in the notes, the PO2 is about 90 millimeters of mercury. Okay, so there's a 10 millimeter mercury difference there. And one of the reasons why we see that drop from 100 millimeters of mercury in the end of the pulmonary capillary to 90 in the arterial circulation is due to right to left shunts. Okay, and so let's look at a right to left shunt. When we have venous blood, that's what I said, it's venous blood mixing in with that. So say this right to left shunt right here, I'm going to call this one right here, this is a right to left shunt, it's right here, right? That venous blood, what does it have? Well, it has 40, right? It has a PO2, whoops, it's a big 2, but I'll just go ahead and draw it, equals 40. So the PO2 right there equals 40. So now you've got venous blood with a PO2 of 40 mixing into freshly oxygenated blood that has a PO2 of around 100. Okay. Now, depending on how large a right to left shunt is, especially when you're talking about pathological instances, it will affect the overall PO2 of the systemic circulation. But we have a normal right to left shunt. And that normal right to left shunt will cause us to have a difference in the arterial PO2, right, and the alveolar PO2. That difference is called the AA gradient. Okay, so you might see that as well. That's the A to little a gradient. Okay. So we have three main normal physiological right to left shunts that we talked about in class. And so these are the three main ones that we talked about. We talked about the bronchiole circulation, okay? The bronchiole circulation is the portion of the circulation that actually gives nutrients to the conducting zone, okay? It gives nutrients to the conducting zone, and that venous blood that's leaving the conducting zone actually gets dumped into the pulmonary veins, right? And the pulmonary veins are leaving the lungs, and so therefore we're mixing in venous blood with arterial blood. The second example of a right to left shunt that we talked about is the pleural circulation. It's the circulation that actually feeds the pleura that cover the lungs, specifically the visceral pleura. That gets dumped back in, once again, to the pulmonary veins, okay? And the last one is called the Thebesian circulation. It's a series of little tiny, very small vessels that actually feed the endocardium and the very, very endocardial kind of first couple of cells in the myocardium of the heart itself. And so that venous blood actually, since it's so close to the lumen of the heart, it will actually get dumped back into the lumen of the heart, and it will decrease the overall oxygenation of the blood, leaving the left side of the heart by a little bit, okay? So those are the three main areas, three main right to left shunts under normal physiological conditions that I want you to know. And remember, if you're getting confused, a right to left shunt is when you're mixing venous blood with arterial blood. That's going to decrease the overall oxygenation of the arterial blood, okay? We'll talk much more about that later. If you want to know more, go ahead and listen to that lecture where I talk about it. And yeah, shoot me any questions. And I think that is it for this microvid. So as always, stay cool, stay in school, don't do drugs. We'll see you next time.